What are some of the most neglected services or parts of a vehicle that, and what are the possible consequences of neglecting them?
Probably the most neglected services that we see are fluid services and regular maintenance on a car. Over the last 15 to 20 years, as cars have gotten better, the manufacturers have tried to extend their service times out. And to a certain degree, that was correct, because with for an example, the oil change of a car used to be 3,000 miles. And that service interval is increased mainly because of the increase in technology in a vehicle. Back, from the time a car was built until the middle 1980s, all cars had carburetors. Carburetors, for the most part, are fairly inefficient. They dump a lot of extra gas in the engine. That gasoline that doesn't get burned washes down the cylinder walls and goes into the oil, and it contaminates the oil. And that was the big reason to change your oil at 3,000 miles, is because the oil was so contaminated by fuel, it was losing its lubrication properties. And then about 1986, 87, most cars started using fuel injection. Fuel injection uses a little fuel injector that's kind of like a shower head, and it sprays a fine mist of fuel into the engine, and the amount of fuel is controlled by the computer. So the computer knows exactly how much fuel the car needs and only gives it that amount. And so that has increased, that took away the vehicle's oil soaking or fuel soaking of the oil and making the oil contaminated quicker, and it turned it into where you could kind of do an oil change 5,000, 6,000 miles and be okay with it. Well, what we've seen over the last few years is vehicle manufacturers have extended their service lives even longer. The cars really haven't gotten that much better. What's happened is they've started competing amongst themselves in the cost of an ownership of a vehicle. And the cost of the ownership of a vehicle is determined by how much maintenance you're going to have to do on this car from the time you buy it until it hits 100,000 miles. And the quickest way to lower the initial cost of ownership of a vehicle is to extend the oil change intervals. And so what that's done is they've pushed them out to 7,500 miles. But when you look at the information that the manufacturers provide you, they'll tell you that it's okay for a car to use a quart of oil every 1,500 miles, every 2,000 miles. Well, if you go 7,500 miles without having your oil changed, and your car uses a quart of oil every 1,500 miles, and your car only holds 4 quarts of oil, you'll end up replacing the engine over that. So we kind of have come to the determination with all of the cars that we see and all of the type of driving that people do in Seattle and in the Puget Sound area, that the best interval for most cars is 5,000 miles. And what we do at 5,000 miles is we change the oil, do the vehicle inspection, and the other big missed thing that happens is tire rotation. So when we do the oil change, we also rotate the tires, and we recommend that you rotate your tires every 5,000 miles with the oil change. There's no reason to rotate your tires separately from the oil change to make things easy on you, and because we're all busy. So the best thing to do is just to change your oil, rotate your tires, and do your vehicle inspection every 5,000 miles. Now, if you're someone that drives from Seattle to Portland every day on the freeway, that's a little bit different, and that's why it's so important that you find a service facility that knows you and knows your car and knows how you use your car, and then can really develop a service plan that works for the way you use your car. Because the salesperson that drives from Seattle to Portland every day is a lot less rough on his or her car than the guy that delivers Domino's pizza. That car, with the constant stopping and acceleration, really needs to be serviced at a minimum of 5,000 miles. And sometimes you might even need to do do a little earlier than that, depending on the age of the car. The other things that we see often are transmission fluid services. Transmissions start to fail at 60, 70, 80,000 miles due to heat, due to contaminated fluid. Some manufacturers state that they have lifetime transmission fluid. There is no such thing. They're saying this again to lower the initial cost of the ownership. So if you want to buy a brand new car and you only want to keep it 70 or 80,000 miles, then go ahead and follow those instructions, and you'll probably be okay. The problem's going to arise in the next person that owns the car. But if you're a person that will buy either a used car or buy a car that you're going to keep for 150, 200,000 miles, and as expensive as cars are, we're starting to see that more and more where people are driving their cars 200, 250 to 300,000 miles. And with regular fluid services, transmission flushes, oil changes, brake fluid flushes, tire rotations, spark plugs being replaced at the correct time, you do all that stuff, there's no reason why you can't have a fabulous running car for at least 300,000 miles.